Good evening. I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show in California with Mary Kissel of the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. We're at the Hoover Institution in beautiful Northern California, where it's cloudy today, but it is springtime. And we're joined now by Devin Nunes of California, member of the Republican delegation in California. And Devin is a man we count on for reports from the Central Valley, the breadbasket of planet Earth. We especially count on him for reports about his water bill, introduced earlier this year, embraced by the Republican-dominated House of Representatives. And the fresh news is that the water bill has a conversation ahead of it because the Senate panel has approved the water bill, but the difference between Devin's bill and the Senate bill is worrisome. So we ask Devin's help. Congressman, a very good evening to you. I don't want to rush and congratulate you that the Senate is actually paying attention to the House, but this does sound like the conversation is going to last another day. What are the differences between your comprehensive water bill and the Senate?
Well, John, first of all, it's great to be on with you and Mary, and this is, I'm a little bit jealous. You're out in California. I'm in Washington, D.C. You're in my home state, and I know I was there a few weeks ago, spoke to the Santa Clara Republican Party, and I can't tell you how many fans you have in San Francisco and the greater Bay Area. So I'm a little bit jealous. I'd like to be there with you. But essentially, this is California's kind of wacko story continued, which is that the House passed a bill that guarantees people their private property rights and their rights to water, to bring water to an area that's been impoverished over the last few decades. And essentially you have government who's taking water, dumping it out to the ocean to save a little delta smelt. It's really a tragic story, one that I've written about and one that you've covered over the years. And finally, the House of Representatives passed a bill, as you said, overwhelmingly, that would make sure that farmers and urban and rural communities in San Joaquin Valley have water. Sadly, today, Senator Feinstein has her bill, which is entirely inadequate. It calls for basically more hand-wringing, more studies, and at the end of the day, it means that people in California are not going to have water, including those in Santa Clara, which this is kind of a problem I think people in Santa Clara Valley have to deal with, and I think they're starting to see it in the high-tech sector also, which is they may not like Republicans because they went to college and were told a lot of bad things about Republicans, but at the end of the day, the Republicans are the ones who are for less government. The Republicans are the ones who are trying to save businesses in California. Republicans are the ones trying to deliver water not only in San Joaquin Valley, but also to the Santa Clara Valley, which, guess what, gets their water from the same place.
Congressman, you mentioned Senator Feinstein, who said this week, and I quote, "Overall, I believe we have developed a well-balanced and responsible bill," end quote. Can you give us any details of this hand-wringing that you're speaking of and why it's so destructive?
You could take that quote that you just, and I have not seen that quote, Mary, but the quote that you just gave me that I assume is an exact quote from Senator Feinstein, and you can match that up to her quotes from 1994 and 92 or whenever it was when she was first elected, and every year she says the same exact thing, except that there is no balanced approach. There's only an approach that makes sure that the environmental groups, and I say this really they're just radical environmental groups, their only goal is to continue to take water, and so it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Devin, we're down river from the Central Valley here, close to San Francisco Bay, and the people around us here at Stanford, all the way to San Francisco, are part of this conversation. Is there any way to ask these people what they think is the right thing to do? Because this is a contest between two powerful California politicians, Dianne Feinstein, the longtime senator, and Devin Nunes, who is a trustworthy representative of the Central Valley. What do the people here that are actually drinking this water, for example, Palo Alto, what do they make of it? Has anybody ever asked them, Devin?
Well, for the better part, they just don't know. So when I speak to the Santa Clara Republican Party, I get a standing ovation because they know what big government is doing to them and what radical environmentalism is doing to their businesses and their communities. And they know that their water comes from the same place that everyone else in California gets their water from. So essentially, the area you're in, although it looks nice and plush and cool climate, the reality of it is a desert. The people that live in San Francisco are in a desert. They don't have enough water unless they pipe it over. In fact, it's so ridiculous that San Francisco actually gets their water from part of Yosemite, where they actually dammed up a beautiful valley called Hetch Hetchy, and they actually dammed up that water back in the 20s. The federal government gave them that water, and it's actually probably one of the more pristine areas in all of the country, an area that I'm not for tearing down dams, but this would be one area where you should actually look at tearing down dams. So it's very confusing for folks, because if you're in Palo Alto, you're one of the richest areas in all of the world. So if your water bill goes up by 50%, if it goes up from $100 a month to $150, you don't really notice it. But if you're in the San Joaquin Valley and you have half of your land has no water and your crops dry up, you notice it. And if you're a farm worker, you for sure notice it because you're out of a job. And that's how you end up with high unemployment in regions of the state where you actually have to work off the land and make things with your hands and build things and work versus sit around and think. And there's nothing wrong with either one of those occupations, except you can't have the people who are sitting around thinking too much, that they feel guilty by the desert that they live in and the water they pipe over, and they're willing to kill people's jobs to take the place of the travesty that they've created themselves.
Well, speaking of shabby policies, we should probably move to the shabby state of the California economy. And I will have you know, Congressman, that John and I were just plunged into darkness briefly here in the studio, an electrical outage. But on more serious subjects, we do have some very serious economic issues here in the Golden State. I note Jerry Brown is hiking taxes to backfill state pensions. How much worse can it possibly get, Devin?
And I want to mention, before you answer that, Congressman, I am stunned again, 4 years since I was last here, to see empty storefronts in Palo Alto, California. Nobody at home, Devin. Is California sinking? That's what it looks like in Palo Alto.
Now, as one of your great reporters, I do have to tell you that I think on your show about 3 years ago, I did report that.
Yes.
From there, I remember doing a show. I was actually calling in.
And they're still empty. There are more of them empty in Palo Alto, Devin.
Well, it's because manufacturing is being driven from those areas, because the only people that want to be there are the people that are there or everybody wants to be there. Everybody in the world wants to be there.
Sure.
Because it's a great place to be, great weather, great people, just a fabulous environment.
It's just great.
But the sad part is
they're going to Texas.
Yeah, they're going to Texas, or they're going to other countries, because there's no way with it. You mentioned the electricity problems. Well, California, I think they have an average price 50% higher than the rest of the United States, because they're unwilling to produce anything but solar power and wind power, which ironically, solar power, you think Solyndra now, which was government-subsidized solar company that went bankrupt, and now you have windmills that they're trying to build in other parts of the state that are now being sued by the radical environmental groups, same people taking my family and my constituents and the folks I represent, taking their water, and they're the same people suing to stop these windmills from being built, which ends up with you guys having a power outage while you're there. I hope that you don't go dead, because then I'm going to be on the phone.
It was exciting. No. We had a free zone of excitement here in the studio.
No, Devin can carry the show. It's okay. But Devin, it is actually, after talking to you for 4 years since I was here, it is actually alarming to see this, given that we're surrounded by Facebook and Google and Apple. We're surrounded by the best tech on the planet, and the shop owners are not doing well.
Well, quick story, John, and I know we're finishing here, but I went to the outskirts of San Jose and to where there used to be a bunch of businesses located, and sadly there was like a bar located in the manufacturing area that like a bar had taken over one of the manufacturing areas. Very, very sad. Very sad state of affairs for the people who are just trying to make a living.
Devin Nunes, 21 California. The revision, Devin, what is your new number in the revision for the new election?
Going to be number 22.
I will need to relearn it. It's still 21 California, but in the redistricting that is imminent, he will be the 22nd Congressional District of California. Devin Nunes, the water bill, another day, another remark by the senior senator, Dianne Feinstein of California. Nothing changes. Mary Kissel of the Wall Street Journal editorial board. We have lights right now. This is John Batchelor.